Hello everyone, welcome to Healthy Habits. I'm Dr. Sheila and I'm really excited to talk to you today about how to use foods this summer to stay cool, calm, and balanced. So I'm back in the kitchen and I'm going to actually show you a lot of the foods that I stock in the summer so that I can stay balanced. And as you know, welcome everyone. Sounds like you can hear me, fantastic. As you know, in Ayurveda, we need to adjust our food and our activities seasonally because nature is changing. If you look at the plants, they're doing things differently, animals are, and so we should as well. And so I'm going to talk about how you can just make modifications to your diet so that you can stay balanced with all the heat of the summer. Now, I know some of you live in the Southern Hemisphere where you may be in the midst of winter, and you can still use all of these tips when it's summertime for you. So that's the great thing about Ayurveda. It's applicable everywhere. It just may be a different time of year. If you're new to Ayurveda and the doshas or the mind-body types or even the 6 tastes of Ayurveda, I recommend you check out our website, Chopra.com, and also I have saved on my Healthy Habits series videos that talk about the 6 tastes of Ayurveda and using food as medicine in general. So you're welcome to go and look at those videos as well, because today we're going to talk about summer. And not only are we going to talk about all of the wonderful foods that summer gives us to stay cool and balanced. You know, nature gives us these fruits and veggies, and those are all things that help us stay balanced during the summer and stay cool in body and mind. And we have to be able to digest these foods. So in Ayurveda, digestion is the most important factor in nutrition. So I'm going to also give you tips on how to combine and add certain spices and how to eat your food so that you can actually digest it in the summer. Because otherwise you don't have access to all of these wonderful qualities, phytonutrients, all the healthy nutrients in the food that you're eating. So welcome. Looks like people are joining from all over the world, so that's fantastic. Namaste. So let's dive right into the food. So, before we talk about food, I want to talk to you about this concept of mind-body types. Again, these mind-body energies, they represent qualities that are dominant in us and in nature. And in summertime, it's pitta season. It's fire season. Imagine that. There's heat, the days are longer, so there's more light, and we potentially are doing more, we're more active. So this is pitta season. It starts, at kind of the end of spring, again, in this sort of typical climate through the summer. And yes, thank you. Summer is a beautiful food season. I'm sitting here in front of all this food. I can't tip my camera, otherwise, but I'm gonna hold up the food so you can see all the beautiful colors. And it is a beautiful food season, and it's also hot. So in Ayurveda, food has different tastes, which are sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, astringent. And again, go back and look at my video on that. And they also have energies, or virya. There's a term for that in Ayurveda, it's called virya, which make them either heating or cooling. And in summertime, and this just has to do with physiologically what they're doing. And typically you can tell what's a heating food, a chili pepper. How do you feel after you eat it? Like heat, sweating, right? Cooling foods are like watermelon and cucumber and just water itself, right? We feel cool. So food also has these energies, or virya. And so in summertime, we want to eat cooling foods. However, another really interesting and smart concept in Ayurveda is that and this is a question we get a lot in Ayurveda, sometimes people feel like, oh, it's pitta season. That means my fire and my appetite and digestion will be strong. That may be the case, especially if you're staying balanced all year. So my digestion's pretty good right now, so I can eat like the fruits and raw veggies and stuff that summer is giving me. However, if you have a weak digestion, meaning you feel bloated and heavy after you eat, maybe you're not having regular bowel movements, you don't really feel like you're digesting your food, you can eat all these great summer foods and not feel well. So the reason for this is that when we're hot, which I'm feeling hot right now, the sun's shining outside, I'm feeling hot, our heat is dispersed, right? We feel it. Our skin is hot, our blood vessels are dilated. So our heat is actually dispersed into the tissues and not in the furnace, right? Our agni. So our digestive fire that breaks down and absorbs and assimilates our food is called agni. And that can actually be a little bit weak in the summer because of this dispersed heat in the body. We're sweating, we're moving, right? We're more active. So we have to pay attention to our digestion. And many of you may realize when you're really, really hot, you actually lose your appetite. And maybe you can't digest the foods that, you could digest at another time of year. Nature, again, because it's giving us these heavy and all these foods that are a little bit harder to digest, like fruits, sweet fruits, again, and all these beautiful greens, we have to do things to the food to help us digest. So let me give you some healthy tips to digest all this wonderful summer food. So again, with Pitta season, we all want to eat a little bit more of sweet, bitter, and astringent foods in the 6 tastes. So again, fruits and healthy grains, and I'm going to talk about that, what spices and grains to use after fruits and vegetables. And bitter and astringent are those vegetables that are very cooling for Pitta. And we want to minimize, if you're a Pitta especially, but for all of us a little bit in the summer, the pungent, which are the really spicy foods, because again, this can dissipate the heat even more if we're eating too much spice, sour and salty. So you don't want to overdo those tastes, but I will show you how to use them to help you digest these summer fruits. Okay, so fruit. Let's talk about fruit first, because it's so healthy for so many vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, like in the beautiful colors, the carotenoids, the antioxidants. So we want to eat fruit. Don't feel like fruit is bad for you because it has sugar. That was kind of a disservice to fruit for a while there. If you eat fruit in its natural form, it has the fiber, it has all the phytonutrients that help you use the natural sugars in the fruit. So fruit is very, very balancing for Pitta. All fruits have a little bit of fruit sugar, so they're sweet. And sweet foods balance Pitta. So I'm going to show you some of these wonderful fruits that we get in the summertime, right? This watermelon, it's so juicy. Melons. I like pineapple. It is a sour, but it's also, like when you eat it very, very sweet, it has a sweet as well. But the melons are especially sweet. And grapes, you want, for Pittas and Pitta season, it's especially good to eat the red or black grapes because they're sweeter than the green grapes. I mean, again, this is 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time you're eating, the foods for the season. The other 20%, if you have them, it's fine. So these are other fruits that I have for this. I always have apples. And in the summer, you want to eat the sweeter varieties of apples, not the real soury apples, like the green apples. So, sweet apples. Pear. I got these beautiful peaches from a neighbor who has a little peach tree. They're delicious, juicy. Think juicy and sweet, right? Beautiful mango. Many of you live in places where mango grows, very Pitta balancing. And avocado. So we have a lot of avocados here in Southern California, very Pitta balancing. And then I have lime here. So lime and lemon are a sour, but we do need a little bit in our diet to help us digest. This is a food we can squeeze on other foods that are maybe a little heavier to help stimulate our digestive fire because they have a little bit of acid and digestive fire within them. Lemon and lime are both sour. However, as I mentioned, the energy or the virya of food, lime is cooling and lemon is heating. So in the summer, if you're a Pitta, especially that's your nature to have a lot of fire, you may want to try lime instead of lemon on your food, in your water, so that you don't heat up too much. If you're having, so signs of excess heat in your system, high fire, would be a little heartburn, maybe some rashes, redness, redness in your eyes, like just anything that's red is burning and hot, and heartburn, acidity. Loose stools is another sign of like too much heat. Your body's trying to release heat. Migraines. So think about adding more cooling foods. If you do a lot of lemon and a lot of soury foods, then switch to more of these cooling foods like lime. You also can eat a little bit more sweet banana, than astringent. How do you know the difference? Bananas that aren't quite ripe yet are more astringent, and the ripe bananas, look a little different, right? So in Ayurveda, whether a food is ripe or raw makes a difference. Ripe fruit is more cooling. That being said, to digest all these amazing fruits, and a lot of countries do this. A lot of, I know in India, in Mexico, a lot of different countries, especially where these tropical fruits grow a lot, they always add spice or salt. So the tastes of sour, salt, and pungent have a little fire in them. They stimulate our digestive fire. We don't want to overdo it, again, especially if you have a lot of heartburn, but to digest these fruits, it's okay, and sometimes better, again, because your Agni might be suppressed a little in the summer, to add a little bit of spice. Have you ever seen someone cut up fruit so you could take all this amazing melon, put it in a bag or a container, add a little bit of spice, cayenne, so you can add even a little bit of cayenne, or you can add a little bit of salt, just a little, a dash, right? We all need to be careful that we don't get too much salt, and then you shake it all up, or you can just take a little piece of watermelon and sprinkle a little bit of salt on it, or a little bit of cayenne. I want to eat it, but I'll wait till I'm done. And that helps you digest that fruit. Yes, so many of you do this, and you probably are used to doing that because that's traditionally how people used to eat heavy fruit, to make sure they could digest it. So salt or some sort of spice on your fruit will help you digest. The other thing you can add is a little bit of other spices that stimulate our digestive fire, like cumin. I always have a little bit of dried ground up spice in the pantry. It's really important that you stock your pantry. I'm going to show you some of the spices, but you can sprinkle a little cumin on even your fruit or water. So water is very cooling. Let me take a sip. But as we know, it can also, think about water on a fire, it can dampen the fire. So one thing you can do, here's some cumin seeds. You can see they're like brown little seeds. You can, yes, the salt helps, I'm looking at these questions here, the salt helps us digest. So we all need a little bit of salt in our diet. You don't want to get more than about 3/4 of a teaspoon a day. But if you think about it, if you just use a sprinkle, that's okay. So cumin, you can add that into a container of water, let it sit on your counter, maybe you do it at night, and that the nutrients and some of the, phytochemicals that are in cumin that help stimulate our digestive fire kind of get absorbed into the water. So you can drink cumin water. The other thing, if you didn't plan ahead, like I often don't, is you can just sprinkle a little bit of cumin into your water, and it gives it a little bit of a savory taste, but it actually, while you're cooling, you're keeping your fire strong as well. So you can do both at the same time. You can cool yourself down and keep your digestive fire strong. So yes, a lot of people live in countries where it's typical to do that. Now let's say, so the other thing I wanted to mention is sometimes people do a lot of juices or smoothies in the summertime, and that's totally fine. The other thing is berries. Love berries. They're superfoods. They're a little bit sour, so you don't want to overdo. So right now I have some red raspberries. Strawberries are a little bit more soury. You can tell when you put them in your mouth, right? But I always have berries in the house. And so sometimes people like to make smoothies. Maybe you throw some berries in there, an apple, maybe a little bit of, even avocado. You should always, so those are all heavy, right? So you should always put a little bit of something green, maybe a few spinach leaves, maybe you put in kale, or even a little parsley or cilantro. You'll see these ingredients combined with the fruit to give it a little lightness. And I also recommend sprinkle in a little cayenne and or a little bit of dried ginger. So I have a little dried ginger powder. I have a little ginger paste, so you can squeeze that in there too. Always prepared. And then, or you can just have ginger root and you just grate, peel the skin off a little bit, just grate a little bit of ginger into your smoothie. It really helps you digest it. Absolutely. Someone mentioned celery, really good for pitta balancing. It's astringent, very detoxifying. So that's another great thing to put in a smoothie or juice if you're juicing. But remember, it depends on what your body needs. Ayurveda, one size does not fit all. And so you really want to pay attention to what your body's needing. If you have too much heat, again, I mentioned rashes, a little inflammation, acidity. You also might be feeling irritable and judgy and critical in your mind. It's summer, and I'm a kapha. I'm usually pretty laid back, but pitta is my secondary dosha. And so I've been a little cranky lately. Probably people around me notice. And so I do need more cooling, and my digestion's pretty good. So I don't need to add too much spice, but I always add a little bit. And so again, in the water, sometimes if I feel like I don't need the cumin today, I also, and I'm gonna cut up a little bit, cucumber is just so cooling. So I'm gonna cut up a little bit of cucumber here, and mint. So I have a little mint plant outside, put a little bit of cucumber and mint in your water. And I tend sometimes to get a little bit of acidity in the summer, or if I'm working too much or eating too much spicy food. So a little bit of cucumber mint water cools down that fire in the mind as well as in the stomach. The other thing, again, if you are feeling really acidic or if you have heartburn, and it's not a serious medical problem, and you just don't want to, take and block the acid. So this is a little bit of green juice. There's a place, they make some really healthy green juice, so I'll just have a bottle. I don't drink the whole bottle because, again, it's cold, it's a little sweet and heavy for me. I'm a kapha. So I just take a little bit. If you have heartburn, this is a good little trick. I get pure aloe juice, and I just put half an ounce or an ounce in the green juice because aloe alone is kind of bitter. And sometimes I'll add a little bit of coconut water. Now, I'm not a huge fan. I don't just drink a whole thing of coconut water, but this is very hydrating. So I'll add just a dash of coconut water as well because, in the summer, if I'm having heartburn and I'm getting a little bit of signals from my body, I might add, again, it depends on the day. I might add a little bit of ginger to this so that I digest it. And then, I just drink a little bit so I'm not getting too much of that heaviness. Okay, so yes, cumin water, cumin, I like that. Cumin or cumin water, thank you for that. That's nice, cucumber and mint. You're so clever. Okay, so those are things you can do with fruit. What about veggies? Veggies are bitter and astringent, especially the leafy greens. Leafy greens are so balancing for pitta. And the color green and blue, I wore blue for you today because that's cooling for pitta as well. But all of these leafy greens and green vegetables. Look at that broccoli. I added a little cauliflower, so it's not all green. You see the cucumber, parsley, cilantro, the celery is there, and the greens. So I love, and get a variety of greens. There are people out there that they're always eating the romaine, maybe some kale in there. There's so many beautiful greens out there. Look at this red lettuce. There's red chard. They all have different phytonutrients. Of course, the kale, and there's different varieties of kale. And then celery, again, that's not a leafy green, but there are all kinds of leafy greens. So get a variety of leafy greens. And broccoli, really, really healthy for so many reasons, very detoxifying, and a little bit of these herbs like the fresh cilantro and parsley. Okay, here's a hint, a healthy habit hint and tip on vegetables. If your Agni is strong, meaning you feel like you digest your food after you eat and you don't get gas, bloating, burping, you feel good. You have a strong Agni, you have a strong digestive fire. Make all these foods into a salad. Throw the celery in there, throw the raw broccoli, And the raw vegetables are very cooling, like the raw fruit, and they're harder to digest. So if you have a weak Agni, you don't feel so good when you eat those raw veggies. And if you're a Vata dosha, again, go back and look at the videos on dosha or Chopra.com for information on the mind-body types. If you're a Vata, you're not, even in this, maybe even or especially in the summer, you're not going to tolerate those raw greens. Take all of these same foods and cook them a little bit. Saute them. Even if you're a Pitta and you normally can eat a salad, listen to your body. Yeah, microgreens are great. I have some sprouted broccoli greens and alfalfa greens. I throw that on top of my salad. But in the summer, lots and lots of greens. Bell peppers, if you're not sensitive to nightshades, all of the sweet bell peppers, and cauliflower, broccoli. I'm going to make this all into a salad when we're done because my digestion is good. If it's not, put them in a pan with a little bit of oil, saute them, and then add cumin, coriander, fennel. You can add it as a ground powder. I get these big bags of the ground spices, or you can just get the seeds, cumin seeds. You can cook them with coriander seeds. That's what coriander looks like. These are the seeds of the cilantro. And then fennel. So cumin, coriander, and fennel, these are raw fennel seeds. They help stimulate your digestive fire, and they're good for all the doshas. So put some in either the seeds and let them pop in the oil, or cook the veggies and use the dried coriander, cumin, and fennel. I talk about this on the Chopra Meditation and Wellbeing app. There's a 4-program series on summer renewal, and I talk about all these things in there as well. If you have our app, you can go in and listen to foods for the summer. Cumin, coriander, fennel are good for all of the doshas. The other thing is, if you need a little more support, like you're a Vata or a Kapha, dried ginger, just throw the dried ginger in there, a little cayenne, really any of the spices. Okay, so those are veggies, fruits, veggies, lots of leafy greens, all of these green vegetables, fantastic for Pitta balancing. The other spices, so let's go to spices. The spices I wanted to mention, almost forgot. I wanted to tell you, cilantro and parsley are both amazing herbs. You can have fresh dill, which is also really good for balancing Pitta, dill, and cilantro, the best, and fennel. Dill, cilantro, and fennel if you are really feeling hot. Parsley is also good, but in excess, it's a little heating. Remember, we talked about heating and cooling. Cilantro's cooling, parsley's heating. Parsley, I always have both because this is a little bit more pungent heating. So it's very detoxifying. Cilantro is too, but I like, again, variety is key to health. Okay. So yes, someone said that I overuse fresh parsley. If you're a Vata type and you don't, your digestion's good and you don't feel overheated, that's fine. So don't worry about it. But because sometimes these are subtle differences that we might adjust if you are having heartburn or some kind of Pitta imbalance. We may say, mix a little cilantro in there instead of using parsley all the time. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention, let's say you do feel like raw veggies are great. What do I dip them in? Hummus is a great dip, but the other thing that's very cooling, dairy is cooling for Pitta. Yogurt is okay. It's a sour, but it's also sweet and it's cooling. As long as it's fresh yogurt, not kind of the store brand that's old, and fresh yogurt. And I have this, it's like a tzatziki dip, which is yogurt mixed with cucumber and dill. You can make it at home with your fresh yogurt. Dice up some cucumber, add a little bit of dill. Here's some dried dill I have, or fresh dill is even better. And I always add a little bit of the cumin, a little bit of the spice, because I'm a Kapha, and with dairy, I need to help myself digest. So that's a great thing for the summer. It's very cooling to dip your veggies in. Okay, so Okay, someone was trying to call me. Okay, let's talk about spices before we run out of time. I mentioned cumin, coriander, fennel. And the other spices I'm going to mention right now are good for all the doshas. Turmeric. Add a little bit of turmeric. Helps you digest your food. It's pungent, bitter, and astringent. And yes, you can use coconut yogurt. Some people don't do dairy, so coconut yogurt is great. And it's even more pitta balancing because of the coconut. Sweet foods, if you eat, you make pastries or some sort of sweet, always add cinnamon or cardamom, some sort of spice. And these are more pitta balancing, cinnamon and cardamom. All spices in excess can be a little heating because they have the heating quality. That's why they help us digest. But you just want to add a little bit of cinnamon or cardamom to make those yummy fruit pies or whatever you're making more digestible. And then vanilla is very cooling. Make sure it's a pure vanilla extract, not like the artificial flavor. And that's very cooling for pitta. So I'm talking about cooling. Cools our mind, makes us calm and sweet, right? And not cranky anymore. The other spice I wanted to talk about is saffron. Very, very balancing for pitta. It's a beautiful spice. It's this beautiful red. They're little threads. They come from, it is the most expensive spice in the world, I believe, because you have to pick, it's a reproductive part of this flower. So, you have to pick them. It's this beautiful red spice, but it's the best one for balancing pitta. So if you're going to have a little almond milk or regular milk, add a few little things of saffron into it. You can add saffron to whatever. And it's so pitta balancing. And you can buy a little bit of it and use it over many, many months. So it's beautiful. Yeah, it's a lovely thing to add to make it more pitta balancing. The other thing is rose water. I don't have any right now, but you can add rose water to your regular water to make it more cooling. Okay, let's talk about the calorie food, so the grains and beans. Absolutely, if your digestion is strong and you eat animal products, you can do that. Just make sure your digestion supports that, because meat is hard to digest. So just make sure you're supporting your Agni when you eat those foods, and doing all the other lifestyle things that you need to do to maintain your Agni, including getting good sleep, mindful movement, not overdoing it, especially in the summer, because again, as that heat dissipates, your Agni will get weaker. So good mindful moderation in your exercise, and meditation, of course, daily. Download our Chopra meditation and well-being app. Meditation is great for keeping your Agni strong. Okay, so let's talk about grains. Pretty much all the grains are good for pitta. Brown rice can be a little bit heating, so maybe eat a little less of it in the summer if you're heated. Quinoa is a great one. So quinoa is good, oats are good. You can do basmati, jasmine rice. Again, you need to cook them with spices and to make sure you digest. Calorie foods are harder to digest, but quinoa is good, oats, amaranth, barley. Most of the grains are great. And then beans and legumes. So beans, again, almost all the beans are great for pitta balancing. Soybeans are a little bit heating. So anything made from soy is a little bit heating, can get pitta out of balance. So maybe, again, moderation. Red lentil is it looks, like that. Great if you're gonna make dal or soups, and mung. So split mung looks yellow like this. So when I make dal, I'll use usually red lentil. It's good for all the doshas. Mung dal is just a little bit heavy. And so I use that a little bit less. I like to use the red lentil, and that's good for pitta balancing, which is my secondary dosha. Yes, canker sores inside the mouth can be a sign of high pitta, little ulcerations. So maybe that's too much heat, and that's how your body is trying to get rid of the heat. So you may want to do some of these cooling things that we talked about. Wheat is fine if you tolerate wheat. You can get a good, eat good pasta, wheat, tortillas or breads, naan, and all of those, things that we can make from good quality, wheat that, and again, as long as you're not sensitive. So, those are kind of the more calorie foods. So again, and here, I forgot to show you my beautiful basil plant. So if you're using fresh herbs, dill is good. Basil is a little bit pungent, like parsley, but it's also sweet. And there are different, the sweet basil varieties. So that's another great, herb to cook with. And I would recommend, find what your favorites are, because that's what you're going to eat, right? That's what you're going to cook with. Stock your pantry. If there were 3 top ones, I would say coriander, cumin, and fennel. Both the seeds and the ground. So coriander, cumin, and fennel, because that's good for all the doshas. It's great for Agni stimulating. If you don't know, I don't know what to do, throw those onto anything, your sauteed vegetables. You can put them on top of your fruit, anything. So stock your pantry with these good spices, and then a little bit of cinnamon, some cardamom, again, for those sweets that you want to add a little bit of spice to. Have a little bit of ginger and cayenne, again, because those are going to stimulate your Agni even a little bit more. Maybe a little bit of ginger paste, fresh ginger that you can grate on top of those sauteed veggies. So, yes, a mild curry, absolutely. So, curry powder is actually typically a blend of different spices. The reason I'm mentioning coriander, cumin, fennel right now is because they all balance pitta in general, when you combine them, and won't get it too out of balance. So for the summer, that's great. Yes, and fennel is great for bloating. Fantastic. Someone's asking about garlic. Garlic and onion, thank you for asking, are pungent, right? Anything you can smell has a pungency, those essential oils, and they're great for detox, sulfur molecules. However, they're heating. So you can have a little bit of onion and garlic, in your foods, but don't overdo them. If you are a pitta dosha, again, and you can take the quiz at chopra.com /dosha quiz, or scroll to the bottom of our website and go to dosha quiz. Or if you're feeling overheated, like in the summertime, I reduce my onion and garlic in the summer. In the fall, in the winter, I'm using it like crazy. But in the summer, I do reduce it a little bit. Okay, great. So stock your pantry. Remember to eat a lot of cooling things this summer, those fresh fruits, those amazing greens, and use the spices, maybe a little bit of salt. In fact, I grew up eating cucumber with a little tiny bit of salt sprinkled on top. And now I'm realizing that helps us digest that cucumber. Again, if your digestion is good, have at it. You don't necessarily need to add the spices to everything. But again, as I mentioned, in summer, if you notice my appetite's low, I'm not really digesting as well. Why is that? Again, that happens in the summer if our heat is being too dissipated. So fruits, vegetables, and then, these beautiful herbs and spices. And eating for the summer, again, listen to my summer renewal on our app, the program, and check out the videos. This one will be saved as well on Chopra IGTV. And got a few minutes, so I'm going to look at your questions here. Yes, warmer foods in the winter. Yes, so instead of these cooling foods, and I'll do another one in the winter when it's winter here, we're going to more warming and heating foods, right? A light lunch for a pitta in hot Florida or any, hot place is, again, some of these greens, bitter and astringent vegetables. And if you have a good digestion, and it could be small, sometimes it's the amount we're eating, right? And we think like, oh, I should eat more because it's summer, but maybe you just eat a little bit of a light salad. And typically our Agni is strongest at noon or in the middle of the day between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So that's a nice time to eat, some of these leafy greens. If your digestion's not that good, just saute them a little bit. They don't have to be super mushy, but just saute them a little bit. And, add a little bit of cumin on top, cumin, coriander, fennel, and that would be a nice light kind of food for a pitta summer. It could be a wrap. There are these nice, many different materials. I like to take, the reason I get this shard, I like to take this and put stuff inside of it and use that as a wrap. You can also get those nice coconut or rice, just the wraps, or whatever sort of wrap that, is typical for your type of diet, or that you can get that's good quality. And then you can, just put some greens in there, a little bit of cucumber, maybe a little bit of avocado, some of the cilantro, and again, some of the things that I talked about, and you can have a nice, just one little nice light wrap for a lunch. That can be a nice light lunch for a pitta. Okay. Yes, and depending on what the weather is outside, of course, in summer, sometimes it rains as well, and depending on where you live on the globe. So again, just ask your body, how are you digesting? A lot of it has to do with what's happening outside, and a lot of it has to do with what's happening inside. So are you feeling good after you eat? Do you feel like you don't have those symptoms, bloating, gas, irregular digestion, that you can digest these salads, then go for it. If not, then you want to cook your food a little bit. All right, so you can roast veggies, you can, like the broccoli, cucumber, you can grill. A lot of people are, grilling veggies. You can roast them in an oven, saute them, steam them, but cooking them a little bit may help. Okay, so add spices to the heavy fruits and veggies, cook them a little bit if you're having some digestive issues. And for kapha, like me, I usually will add a little bit of spice, and I avoid, some of the heavier, because you might look up pitta balancing foods, some of the things we talked about, but they're still heavy. So I will enjoy some of these nice fresh fruit and these juicy fruits, but I don't overdo them because I'm a kapha. So everybody has to eat according to their own digestive fire, their natural tendencies, and make those minor adjustments for the season. So enjoy the summer, enjoy these beautiful foods that summer has to offer, support your digestion, and stay cool, calm, balanced. And I will be back with you next week. You can watch this again on Chopra IGTV, as well as some of the other videos. Go to our app where we have more Ayurvedic content and articles on Chopra.com. We're here to support you, and stay cool. And if you're in the winter spots on the earth, stay warm. And we'll be doing a winter session like this when the weather gets cold here in California. So namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining.